Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. So, the new permanent co-op event Stygian Onslaught is almost here, and I know a lot of you have questions about how it works, what you need to do to unlock it, and whether it's worth the grind. In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know before the event launches. I've already made a short video where I explained the basics of the Stygian Onslaught event, so to avoid repeating myself and turning this into a 1-hour documentary, I won't go over the same points again here. Please check that video for a brief idea about the event. Link available in description and pinned comments. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Alright, first things first, Stygian Onslaught doesn't actually drop the same day a new patch goes live. It takes a little time to show up. Specifically, the event becomes available 8 days after each patch update. So with patch 5.7, the event will officially kick off on June 25th. Now, don't stress if you're not ready on day 1. The event will be around for a pretty long time, roughly 5 weeks, or about 35 days, so there's plenty of time to jump in, test your teams, and grab all the rewards at your own pace. To participate, you'll need to meet a couple of basic requirements. You need to be at least adventure rank 20 or higher, and you have to complete the Mondstadt Archon quest, the Song of the Dragon and Freedom. If you've been playing even just a little, chances are you've already met both of those. But here's the part that's got a lot of newer or mid-game players worried. What if my characters aren't strong enough? You know, you're still using 3-star weapons. Maybe your artifacts are all over the place. We've all been there. The good news is, you're not locked out of the event just because your builds aren't cracked. Genshin added co-op support for this event, at least for the early and mid-level difficulties. So you can team up with your friends, or even randoms, and let them help carry you through. Now, let's talk about how the event is structured. The Stygian Onslaught is split into 6 difficulty tiers, and trust me, the jump between each tier is no joke. It starts off with Normal 1, Advancing 2, and Hard 3, which is pretty manageable even if your characters are mid-build. Then it scales all the way up to Menacing 4, Fearless 5 and Dire 6. To unlock higher difficulties, you have to beat Hard 3 first. For the first few levels, Normal 1 through Menacing 4, you can do the entire thing in co-op mode, which is awesome. That means newer players, or those still working on building their team, can still get through a good chunk of the event with some help. But once you hit Menacing 4, things change. From Fearless 5 onwards, co-op is disabled completely. These higher difficulties demand actual team synergy. You'll need leveled talents, good rotations, elemental reactions, and at least some 5-star units or solid artifact sets. Then finally, there's the Dire difficulty. This is where the bosses hit like a truck, and they're scaled all the way up to level 110. You'll need cracked builds, near-perfect rotations, probably some constellations, and low ping helps too. Dire isn't meant for casual players. It's basically a skill check for veterans who want to push their limits. Now some of you might be thinking, okay, but is Dire even fun? Or is it just pain for the sake of pain? And I totally get that. Not everyone enjoys a challenge that feels overwhelming or unfair. But here's the thing, Dire isn't required. You can get a ton of rewards from the lower difficulties. Dire is more like a bonus challenge. A test for those players who've spent hours theory crafting, grinding for perfect artifacts, and maxing out constellations. It's less about the rewards, and more about the flex. So if that's not your vibe, no worries. Stick to the lower levels, grab your rewards, and just enjoy the event with your friends. That's the beauty of Stygian Onslaught, it's flexible. Whether you're a day 1 whale, or a casual daily commissions only player, there's something here for everyone. During this event, you'll face off against 3 different bosses: Hydro Tulpa, Lava Dragon Statue, and the Secret Source Automaton Overseer device. All of them are powered by ley line disturbances, which give them special effects and mechanics that make the fights more intense and tricky. The first boss you'll encounter in the event is the Hydro Tulpa, and it's clear right away that this fight is influenced heavily by the surrounding ley line disturbance. That strange energy causes 2 major changes to how the battle plays out, and both of them can make the fight incredibly difficult if you don't respond quickly and correctly. As the battle unfolds, the Hydro Tulpa doesn't fight alone. At certain moments, it summons 2 smaller versions of itself, known as half-tulpas. If you ignore them, or take too long to defeat them, the tulpa will absorb them back into its body, and heal a massive chunk of its health, grows visibly in size, becomes more powerful overall, and starts unleashing far more deadly attacks than before. To prevent this, you need to be alert the moment the half-tulpas appear. Stop whatever you're doing and target them immediately. Burst them down using your strongest attacks, or apply freeze or pyro reactions, which can interrupt their link to the main tulpa entirely, and stop the absorption from happening at all. Timing is key. If you delay, you'll end up dealing with a souped-up tulpa that's far harder to take down. But that's not the only threat. As you push deeper into the fight, especially on higher difficulties like Fearless or Dire, the boss starts using a devastating move called Torrential Flurry. You'll know it's about to happen when the Hydro Tulpa stops its normal attacks and summons a glowing ward, a shield-like construct that sits on the field and begins to charge up energy. Once the charging is complete, your currently active character will be instantly taken out, regardless of how much health they have. It's a one-shot move that ignores your healing, shielding, or defense. To stop this from happening, you need to immediately shift your focus to the ward and break it as quickly as possible. When the ward is summoned, all of your characters get a full refresh, elemental skills and bursts are instantly recharged, their energy and fighting spirit are restored, and if you've been using Serpent's Subtlety, that too is refreshed. So while the situation is dangerous, you're also given the tools to counter it effectively. You just have to act fast and hit hard before the flurry can go off. This fight is all about awareness and fast reactions. If you can keep the half-tulpas under control and break the ward in time, you'll be able to manage the Hydro Tulpa without too much trouble. But if you're slow or unprepared, the boss quickly becomes overwhelming. Picking the right team, staying alert to its patterns, and knowing when to switch targets is the key to coming out of this watery nightmare in one piece. The second boss challenge you'll face is the Lava Dragon statue, and like the others, it's affected by a ley line disturbance that drastically changes how the battle plays out. Right from the beginning of the fight, the dragon appears in its geohuman form. In this state, it has high resistance to both elemental and physical damage, making it pretty tough to hurt unless you know how to trigger its transformation. The key here is pyro damage. If you continuously apply enough pyro attacks, the dragon won't stay in its rocky geohuman state for long. Eventually, it will transform into a much fiercer molten dragon form. Once this transformation happens, everything changes. The dragon's resistances drop significantly, except for pyro, which it still handles well, but overall, it becomes much more vulnerable to attacks. Even better, while it's in this molten state, it takes bonus damage from continued pyro hits. So if you're using pyro characters, this becomes your moment to shine. Keep up the pressure, and if you manage to push it further, the dragon will eventually enter Overburn. During Overburn, it collapses and becomes completely immobile for a short time, exposing itself to even more damage. It's like a full-on break phase, where you can unload your most powerful abilities without worrying about dodging or interruptions. However, this state doesn't last forever. After a while, the Overburn ends, and the dragon returns to its original geohuman form, resetting the cycle. But there's a catch. While it's tempting to throw in some hydro or cryo reactions during its molten or overburn state, doing so can actually backfire. These elements cool the dragon down faster than you'd want. If you apply hydro or cryo damage during the vulnerable phases, the dragon will recover early and return to its geohuman state before you've had a chance to deal maximum damage. This means less uptime on its weakest form and a more prolonged, frustrating battle. So, if you're planning to dominate this fight, it's important to avoid using hydro and cryo once the dragon starts reacting to pyro. Now, things become even more complicated when the ley line disturbance kicks in. This environmental effect significantly buffs the dragon by increasing all of its base resistance stats. That means even when you manage to push it into molten form, it won't take as much damage as usual. On top of that, it becomes harder to trigger the transformation itself. You'll need to land more pyro hits than before to force the change. This makes the fight longer and more resource intensive, especially if you're not using a team with enough pyro or dendro output. This boss is all about timing and elemental control. To get the upper hand, you'll want to focus heavily on pyro and dendro characters, who can take full advantage of its vulnerability windows. But you'll also need to be careful and disciplined with your element choices to avoid accidentally snapping the boss out of its weakened states too early. With the right elemental balance and a strong team rotation, you can keep the Lava Dragon statue under control and burn it down before it ever has the chance to fully recover. The third and final boss you'll face during the event is the Secret Source Automaton Overseer device. Like the others, it's powered by a ley line disturbance, but this particular boss brings some of the most unique and technical mechanics in the event. Right from the start of the battle, you'll notice that this machine enters a spinning state called Preemptive Sweeper mode. While spinning, it gains extremely high resistance to both elemental and physical damage, making it very hard to hurt at first. At the same time, it builds up something called flow momentum, a kind of energy meter that increases as it moves. The more flow momentum it accumulates, the faster and more dangerous its spinning attacks become, turning it into a whirling menace that can be hard to avoid or interrupt. However, this spinning state isn't permanent. You can gradually weaken it by hitting the boss with cryo damage. Cryo directly counters the flow momentum buildup by draining it. If you apply enough cryo and reduce its momentum past a certain threshold, the boss will stop spinning entirely and enter a short vulnerable state. During this time, its resistances drop significantly, especially to cryo attacks, giving you a precious window to deal big damage. Even better, the first time you break its spin and interrupt its attacks, it drops a handful of elemental orbs, giving your team a nice boost of energy, so you can fire off more bursts to this boss. As the battle progresses, the ley line energy can cause a different mode to activate, something called Forced Counterstrike mode. This gets triggered if you leave one of your characters standing in the Night Soul's Blessing Zone for too long. When this happens, the boss abandons its spinning behavior and instead starts attacking with dangerous tracking beams that follow your movements. These beams are harder to dodge and deal significant damage if they connect. However, this new mode comes with a bit of a trade-off. While in Forced Counterstrike mode, the boss lowers its defenses slightly and becomes a bit more vulnerable to your attacks. If you continue to apply cryo damage during this state, the boss will eventually stop attacking completely. Its resistances will drop even further, letting you unleash a massive amount of damage safely while it remains frozen in place. That said, the fight doesn't become easy just because you understand the mechanics. The ley line disturbance itself grants the boss a powerful passive effect known as damage-resistant structure. This makes things more difficult across the board. Its base resistances are increased even further, meaning your regular attacks and elemental skills won't deal as much damage as they normally would. On top of that, it becomes harder to drain flow momentum with cryo during the spinning phase, so you'll have to work harder and apply cryo more consistently to get results. Even when it's in Forced Counterstrike mode, it loses less resistance than it normally would, making the damage window shorter and more limited. All of these mechanics make the Secret Source Automaton Overseer device one of the more strategic and timing-based fights in the event. You'll need to bring a team that can apply cryo quickly and reliably, and you'll have to make smart use of the few moments when the boss becomes vulnerable. Managing your positioning, knowing when to stand in the Night Soul's Blessing, and timing your bursts during its weakened states are the key to winning this fight cleanly. With the right setup and a good rhythm, even this high-tech menace can be taken down efficiently. When it comes to building teams for these three bosses, choosing the right elements and characters can make a big difference in how smooth your fights go. Each boss has specific weaknesses that can be exploited, and some characters naturally perform better, thanks to their synergy, or how their abilities interact with the boss mechanics. Starting with Hydro Tulpa, this boss is naturally vulnerable to Pyro. That means characters who deal Pyro damage are your best bet, as they can break through its defenses and deal more consistent damage. In contrast, using Hydro characters in this fight is not a great idea. They're far less effective, because the Tulpa resists Hydro damage, and you'll find your attacks doing significantly less work. If you're working with 4-star characters, a decent team setup might include Gaming, the Pyro version of the Traveler, Rosaria or Layla depending on who you prefer, and Bennett. This kind of lineup can definitely handle the fight, especially on mid-tier difficulties, but you may notice that some of these characters either don't hit hard enough or offer limited support when the fight gets more intense. If you want something more reliable, a team with Mavuika, Sitlali, Shilanen, and Bennett works much better. These characters generally have better synergy and more consistent output, so the fight becomes a lot smoother, especially if you're tackling fearless or dire difficulties where things get more punishing. The Lava Dragon statue, on the other hand, demands a slightly different approach. This boss is highly reactive to Pyro and Dendro elements. Using characters who can apply either of these elements quickly and frequently gives you a serious edge in battle. You'll also want to avoid Hydro and Cryo here, because they actually cause the dragon to cool down, which makes it return to a tougher form where it becomes harder to damage and much more annoying to deal with. If you're relying mostly on 4-star characters, then you can put together a team featuring Yanfei for strong pyro attacks, Xiangling for rapid pyro application, Kale for dendro damage, and someone like Karara or Yao Yao for additional dendro support or healing. Sucrose and Lynette can also fit into this team if you want a bit of extra utility. While this team works well enough, you might find the overall power slightly lacking if you're aiming for quick clears. For a more powerful and synergized team, someone like Arlecchino for aggressive pyro DPS, Xiangling for consistent pyro application, Kazuha for swirling elements, and either Nahida or Emily for dendro support can make a huge difference. This setup can tear through the boss's defenses quickly, especially once you force it into its overburn state, where it becomes more vulnerable and easier to finish off. As for the final boss, the Secret Source Automaton Overseer device, this fight leans heavily in favor of cryo-based teams. The device builds up flow momentum as it spins and attacks, becoming more dangerous the longer it's allowed to power up. Cryo damage, however, directly weakens this momentum, slowing it down and eventually forcing it to stop spinning, which opens a valuable damage window. That makes cryo characters incredibly useful in this battle. If you're using mostly 4-star characters, then you can go with a team including Haizu or Freminette, Charlotte or Chongyun, Diona for healing and shielding, and Kea for extra cryo application. Xingqiu and Dahlia can also be slotted in for support, especially if you need Hydro for reactions or a bit of utility. However, this kind of team may feel a little slow or underwhelming, especially on higher difficulties. If you're looking to build a team with more punch, try combining Skirk, Farina, Escoffier, and Shenna. These characters not only hit harder, but they also work very well together. Farina boosts the team's overall strength, Escoffier can help set up reactions or buffs, and Shenna gives cryo-focused teams a big boost in damage. If you don't have Skirk, Ayaka or any solid cryo DPS can take her place and still perform exceptionally well. In each of these fights, the right elements and character combinations can make your battles faster, easier, and much less stressful. Picking characters who naturally counter the boss's mechanics, whether it's breaking shields, reducing resistances, or weakening their special moves, will give you a noticeable advantage and help you get the best rewards without getting stuck or overwhelmed. As for the rewards, I already explained the rewards of the Stygian Onslaught in my previous video, so I won't go over them again here. Just know, there's plenty of useful stuff, from Primogems to Dust of Enlightenment, depending on how far you go. And as a little bonus observation, if you check the character dressing room, you might notice something new. Alongside the usual outfit and wind glider tabs, there's now a weapon tab. While nothing seems to be available in it just yet, this could hint at something coming in the future. Maybe a new way to customize weapon appearances, or exclusive skins or rewards tied to future Stygian Onslaught events. It's not confirmed yet, but it's an interesting sign of what may be on the horizon, so it's worth keeping an eye on for upcoming updates. Alright, that wraps up everything you need to know about Stygian Onslaught. I hope this guide helped you get a clear idea of what to expect and how to make the most out of this new event. If you found this video helpful, feel free to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.